Welcome, and thank you all for coming. I usually can do a short memorization without notes, but this one's going to be a little tough for me. So I hope you'll have grace for me and some of the other speakers here today. It's so great to have us all together after 10 years. I know we all think this place and the people we shared it with are unique. Occasion, I've heard others call us a cult. To move the conversation along, I frankly will sometimes agree, even though in my thought bubble, I want to argue that a cult requires a single spiritual leader, and we have none. Here's a quick Phil Smith nugget, not a smiley face. He and later admissions leaders told me that in our day, 1/4 of our classmates followed other family members here. Today, it's about 1 in 8, which seems to be about the right direction. At the same time, there's always been something special about this place and its past that bonds so many students and alumni over our lives. I was fortunate to grow up in a Williams household and attended a few reunions early on. I don't know exactly when I became aware of this bond. It might have something to do with winning a ribbon in the kids' track meet held in 1971 in the same field house that got torn down just recently. Or then again, it might be the first drink I snuck at my dad's 20th. But more than likely it was the smiles and laughter and hugs I witnessed at their reunions and smaller gatherings in Chicago. I would come to better know many of these men after befriending some of their kids on campus. In recent years, some joined with my family when we celebrated both my mother's and my father's lives. Williams was my last stop on a 1981 tour of 8 schools. But there was an inescapable feeling that washed over me as we approached town on Route 7. Right around the historic Williamstown home on the green, I decided that if they would have me, I would choose all of you. We all arrived the next year and dedicated ourselves to classes, sports, music, theater, public service, and so much more. I don't think our careers need any celebration in today's context. But through life's journeys, many of us became very close, and we could not imagine life without each other's friendship. So we saw our friends and their families as often as possible. And when we attended reunions, it was no surprise when we often made many more new friends. This cycle continues today. The last 10 years have been very challenging. Not just COVID, but life changes. Raising young people, emptying nests, battling illness, experiencing divorce, as well as caring for and losing our parents or others. Our dearest Williams friends have been side by side with us with love and support through it all. Cult or no cult, I finally understand our spiritual leader is actually all of us and those who cannot be here. We and those we are missing are the reason why we are here today. We're going to keep this simple. We alternatively will read a few brief poems, set the tone. I'll then read each of the names of 28 classmates who can't physically be here. But with your help, we can bring them all here to be cherished for who they were and remain in their memories. Finally, when we're all teary, are you there yet? We've got lots of Kleenex. I got some up here. we will sing a few timely songs, which I hope will unite us with our departed friends in our hearts. Let's start our first reading with Kevin McGowan.
Warm Summer Sun by Mark Twain. Warm summer sun, shine kindly here. Warm southern wind, blow softly here. Green sod above, lie light, lie light. Good night, dear heart. Good night.
Keep It Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his fur babies. Those who prepared green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what this is about, and I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once to do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us that when everything seems dead, it later proves to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. David Applebaum, Mohammed Aziz, Michael Billington, James Brown, Mike Coyote, Cameron Weisenberg Castro, Labani Cephas, Ed Coakley, Ian Eagleson, Chris Gray, Kim Hendrickson, Ken Kirsch, Christine Konieczny, Don Cooley, Anthony Lombardo, Will Love, Frank Moran, Sarah Murphy, Annie Reagan Paparillo, Ben Penny, Pete Pokran, Andrea Raphael, Frank Simpson, Carolyn Smith, Derek Van Eck, Thomas Wallace, E.J. Walton, Jen Koski Washington. It's now time for us to remember and share those memories of our friends so we can all hang out together for a while. I've asked a few classmates who have experienced the most recent losses to share a few brief remarks. Hopefully that will get us all thinking and feeling, and we can all share more about them or the others. First is Ken Richardson.
Fellow classmates, members of the jury. to know Peter as Pokey as we call him when I joined the Williams Octet. So my friends are going to go and do something for you in a second. In the Octet, Pokey was an anomaly. Our average height was probably 5'9", Pokey was 6'3". We all looked like late teens if we were lucky. Peter looked 35. The khakis we wore at the time were chosen to hide as much of our awkward bodies as possible. Pokey, on the other hand, wore the tightest tan pants known to man. Because, as he once told me, "Good men, I have an ass to see." Peter was also relentlessly kind and wickedly smart. And no matter what foolishness we dreamed up to entertain folks at the shows we occasionally did, Peter was completely committed to the bit. He would appear shirtless in Chapin Auditorium if required, and in fact, frequently volunteered. But Peter also enjoyed singing, and our time spent rehearsing was in large part huge fun because he was there. So before I hear his voice in my ear saying, "Kid, what the fuck?" We're going to do a song we closed all our shows with. It's really short, which Peter liked, and when we sang it, it meant he was then free to drink and meet girls, which Peter also really liked. This is all part of the lesson. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rain fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of His hand.
Thanks, guys. Next is Tom Vitale. Going to talk about David Applebaum. I promised him that I would read if he couldn't.
That was good. Sorry about that.
Take your time.
See, now David wouldn't get emotional. So I met David in those first few scary and wonderful days of freshman year. I was Williams B, he was Williams B. And we introduced the entry mates we were already hanging out with to each other. And that was, by happy accident of Phil Smith and the housing group, our friends for the rest of the time we were here at Williams. And also, our friends for the next 40 years. I think everyone in the class knew David. I think we were, right? He wasn't the loudest or loudest guy, but he was a presence on campus. He was a presence everywhere he went. Everyone liked him. He was fun, loyal. He had a sly sense of humor. One of our mutual friends, Ned Ladd, who's actually wanted to be here, and he was traveling back from the band. He called David both an instigator and a joiner, and I think that was a perfect description for David. He was up for any adventure, but he knew not to take things too far. On campus, David was a varsity squash player, he was college council treasurer, he was a great student, he was the best napper you've ever seen. He knew that napping on a Saturday afternoon made Saturday night so much better. He was also a fantastic juggler. And he and Dan Parrish, is Dan here? He and Dan Parrish used to juggle fire sticks on the lawn in front of Perry House at night. And truckers would barrel down Route 2 and then blow their way around. And David taught me how to juggle, which has become like a lifetime hobby of mine. And I in turn taught my kids how to juggle. And one of my kids is now at Amherst. And now she wants to start a juggling club at Amherst, all thanks to David. So, you know, some pluses and minuses there for David, I guess. After graduation, a coworker of mine from the University of Pennsylvania and I decided to throw a party for all our single friends from Williams and from Penn. And it was at that party that David met his future wife, Amy Underberg. David and Amy got married, they stayed in New York, they raised 2 wonderful daughters, and they built a great life together. David also did a bunch of public service work in the city. None of us knew about it. We didn't know about it until the memorial service when somebody who was doing it got upset. So, you know, he was really humble too. None of us knew how much he was doing on the side. We found out, I don't know if you guys know what happened with David, but he got early onset Alzheimer's. It was in his family, he got it, and they told us about it at a birthday party, because they used to send him a birthday party at his apartment. And it was right before COVID, it was like March 2020, it was like 2 weeks before the lockdown. We were all there wondering what was gonna happen with COVID. Then he got up, he made this announcement, and he was like smiling, and he was like, yeah, it's me, I'm just a little bit more forgetful. Don't worry about it, guys, I'm fine. And, you know, he battled for like 6 years. He battled hard. But recently, you know, he did go. You know, we're all better for knowing him and all our other friends who we lost. So, thank you guys.
Anytime. I asked Jerry Hugo to prepare a few remarks on Jen Kosky. Unfortunately, Jerry had to run back home for a family situation. So, fortunately, the next person I asked to prepare remarks on Christine Konishny, Sally Hart, also knew Jen very well, and she's going to speak Jerry's remarks. So, Sally Hart.
I do want to talk about your project too, but I'll have to save that for later, because I have my own set of stories you guys might not know.
Oh, no, we don't.
So these are Jerry's words, and then I'm going to speak my own words about Chris, but Jerry's are so much better written than mine are, so I'd like to take credit for these words. So Jerry says, I met Jen the first week of freshman year. We were placed on the same court during tennis team tryouts, and I quickly learned how smart, friendly, and so very, very funny she was. And I'm forever grateful to Williams Tennis for bringing us together. Williams is also where Jen met her husband, Pete. He was in the class behind us, and the first meeting is definitely what film writers would call meet cute. It was September of our senior year, and Jen was in the computer room, and she was struggling to print out a paper that was due in 30 minutes. Pete was working as a volunteer and wandered over to Jen, asking her if she needed some help. Pete's calm, measured approach made Jen even more agitated. She pleaded with him, if you can get this paper to print, I promise you my firstborn son. Jen and Pete were married the next year. And true to her word, she did give Pete her firstborn son, Benjamin Washburn, Williams College, class of 2023. Jen and Pete's younger son, Robbie, just graduated from Bates College last month, so the Washburns are honorary Bobcats as well. Pete and I used to describe Jen as lightning in a bottle. She was preternaturally positive and upbeat, and I half expected her to come bounding into a room with a big smile on her face, asking me what she missed. Jen loved to travel, both here and abroad. She was a voracious reader and loved all kinds of music, always introducing me to a new song or artist. She spent hours tending her sunflower gardens in Madison, Connecticut, and never missed a sunset no matter where she was. I know Jen would have loved to have been here with us this weekend, but at every reunion I'm reminded the same thing. The people you laughed with at 18 still feel like home. These are the individuals who anchor you to your younger self and help you remember who you were. And you realize that even the chapters you thought were long behind you may still have something to teach you. So in honor of Jen and all the members of the class of 1986 who couldn't be here today, embrace every minute of the weekend, for these moments are precious. a great segue to the story of Chris Konieczny. Chris and I met day one, moving in, Fairweather 3, and a shout out to other people from Fairweather 3, Andrea, Deb, John Melvin is Fairweather, but no. Where's Winnie? Winnie, can't miss Winnie. And Carlos, maybe you were on Fairweather 3. You know, he was. shouting out the Fairweather 3 ladies. So, I will say that first day, it was kind of mayhem, because I had the suite next to Andrea Sprague, who is here today, and Jenny and Chris. And I just remember that first afternoon there being mayhem, because I couldn't figure out if they're gonna have 3 beds in one room and 3 desks in another room, or if they're gonna swap and have 2 in one, whatever. All I remember is I'm staying out of that room for right now as I get myself settled while they all figured it out. Chris, Andrea, fellow floor mates, Sarah Montgomery and Mary Hickox and I formed a really tight bond freshman year. And we stayed together for the most of the time, living in Gladden House for the remaining 3 years. I was there all 3 years. Chris took a year abroad, and Andrea took a semester abroad, and Mary and Sarah lived across the street senior year. But we were all stayed very, very close. And we all shared a lot. Bottomless bowls of popcorn, blasting Madonna, the Commodores, and Marvin Gaye in our little silver boom boxes. We hosted house parties, one of which we themed Burning Down the House, possibly inspired by the constant smell of burned popcorn in our suite. And Chris and I even dated the same guys. Not at the same time, but twice. Eventually, I married the last one, and she was a bridesmaid in our wedding. Chris, at 4'11", blonde-haired and blue-eyed, was dubbed the Cindy Brady of the rugby team. She was small and she was mighty, determined, wickedly funny, high-spirited, and passionate. At Williams, she fell in love with the French language and pursued that passion into her adulthood. Chris became an expert in her field, advancing her studies at the Middlebury French Summer School, and subsequently launched a 35-year career teaching French, mentoring students, and leading field trips to France. She began her career at the Applewell School in Fitchburg, Mass., and spent several years at the Isidore Newman School in New Orleans, and from there, she eventually was recruited to the Friends School of Baltimore. And there, she spent her last 18 years of her teaching career, where she also served as an assistant dean, literally until the time of her death on March 2nd of this year. Chris was diagnosed with ALS just 2 years ago. Small and mighty as she was, the disease took over her body rapidly, but it never diminished her spirit or her charm. At her memorial luncheon in April, her longtime partner, Danny Myler, told us the story of Chris using assistive technology to communicate and type these words on her computer. Hey sexy, come sit with me. With her eyes, she taught with her eyes using assistive technology. The night before she died. Chris's spirit remains with those who loved her, and she'll be in my heart forever. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to open it up for everybody. And I know there's a few folks I've shared this with, and maybe you've had some time to prepare some remarks, maybe some thoughts have come to you while we've been sharing. So if you've got a loud voice, feel free to stand up and share with everybody. If you feel like you need the mic, you can come up to the front and share as well. Who's going to be number one?
I'll do the first one. So, in sophomore year, I met Andrea Raphael, and sort of, when we first got together, I think I spent the next couple of weeks avoiding her. Essentially, I knew that I was going to be overwhelmed and maybe fall madly in love with her. So, she kept looking for me, and just to capture who she was. We were in the cafeteria, and she was across the cafeteria at the other end. And she's yelling out my name so everybody can hear it. It was like, she was absolutely a force, that energy, butterfly, beautiful. And when she finished her year away in Florence, She came to visit me in South Beach. My mom loved her. My mom made arroz con pollo for her. It wasn't enough to eat a plate. She grabbed the pot and went to the sofa and started eating it. And it was one of those things that's who she was. And I did fall madly in love with her. And, amazing person, absolutely amazing person. And anyway.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Nina.
Hi, I'll start. I would like to say something on behalf of Kim Hendrickson, who was a sweet mate freshman year, and she was lovely, sophisticated, came from Bermuda, had this life experience already, and she was really a young woman to my child. And I so appreciated our supposedly, girl-to-girl talks, but she was one who had so much more life experience, and yet she was endlessly patient and understanding, and just a lovely person. And I really appreciated what she brought to our suite. I'm sorry that she left so early, but just want to make sure that we think of her and remember her today. Thanks.
Greg Carodi.
I'm Greg Carodi. I'm going to say just a few words about Annie Regan Pepperello. Don Hubby and I were very fortunate to have been close high school friends of hers, as well as college classmates, and we knew her through most of her life. She unfortunately succumbed to breast cancer in April of 2022 at the age of 58. Just a travesty, but instead of me speaking my words, I'm going to speak her own words, because 2 months before she passed, she wrote a poem that she wanted printed on the back of her funeral program. So I'm just going to read her words, because I think it's applicable, obviously, to her, but to most of the people we're honoring here today. So, Winding Paths, again by Annie Regan Pepperello, February 2022. Please don't shed many tears today. I haven't gone very far away. If you love me like I know you do, you will always share a laugh or two. Whether our paths first crossed at the Woods bus stop, or at a gym doing a back flip-flop, or in a middle school or high school or college dorm room, or in the isthmus of the Sunday Sangha Zoom, or on a beach, or on a bench, or a bleacher seat, or on a field, or a course, or a court playing sport, or while rocking at a concert, or closing down the Pear Grove bar, or in Italy or Ireland, or somewhere you can't quite recall. I am blessed that our paths crossed even at all. We're all connected through and through. Wherever you are, I am too. I reside in the beating place of your heart, where grace demands the leading part. Trust, it is how it is meant to be. Our love and friendship for eternity. We don't need to know why or how, just rest in the perfection of right now. So please don't shed many tears today. I haven't gone very far away. If you love me like I know you do, you raise a glass for a toast or two.
I think we're going to talk about.
Well, you're talking about three people. My brothers. E.J. Walton and James Brown were best friends to each other. And I was a transfer student, so I didn't meet them till I came in sophomore year. And on the day that I met them, which was the first day of classes, the two of them were dressed identically and not on purpose. So they were wearing blue Oxford shirts and khakis. And I turned a corner, I think maybe where the mailboxes were at Baxter, but they both were like, oh, who are you? We haven't met you yet. And then they began kind of drilling, oh, you're a transfer, oh, you are here, oh. And then as soon as they understood that I was their year, as soon as they understood that I had joined their community, they just were like, if one of them would see me somewhere, they would say, oh, have you met this person? Oh, so it's like I had my two private concierges. And I just wanted to make sure that I found my way here. And the sweetness of that, the sweetness of like a hand to hold or a welcome or like a kind of a net that appears beneath you with no expectation. Like the surprise is mine, but they just think they have a job to do. Is just one of the sweetest things, and I want, and so I want to bring that into the room, but I also want to say about EJ. In the very first week, and I think about the third day, he met Devanya Havis, who was a freshman. And it took Devanya a moment to catch up, but EJ was gone. It was done. So my wife, so my girlfriend, be my wife, obviously. And I was honored to be her maid of honor in their wedding, and she continues to be somebody who I talk to regularly, and I just, it's a deep bond, but it began with EJ and James showing me who they were by their welcome. And I don't want to sit down before I bring real love into the room and say, never before have I known, and probably since, as sweet a restless, searching, brilliant soul. Not for nothing that Will was kind of good at everything he did and chose philosophy to study because it was just kind of the hardest thing that he could wrestle with. Not for nothing, no matter how many questions he asked, there were always 1,000 more questions, and he could never settle into life as life was because he was always asking questions, reaching for one more thing, reaching for one more thing. And that level of curiosity, that telescopic view was always something that I feel like I just benefited from sitting in the sunshine of, the genius of that guy. So, three of my brothers, people I love, and will miss forever. But I'm glad we're here thinking about it.
That was lovely. I'm from Chicago. Will was from Chicago. My freshman fall, I made a decision that I was going to not get involved in anything on the campus, and I was going to survey everything and figure it out what I was going to become involved in. And those of you who know me know that I was a spring on the rugby team, and that was who I became, or a part of who I became. Will and I misspent a lot of time that freshman fall. And we were kind of cut from the same cloth. I think I was lucky to have a very strong support system here. Yeah. I regret that Will didn't have that. Anybody else? Bettina.
So I just learned about Will's passing when I read this when I came in. And I looked at our list of who was coming, hoping I would see his name. And it was my best memory of Will is sitting in Mission Park in one of those orange booths when there's like a big party happening and you don't feel you belong. And you're sitting in the booth and you have the best conversation. And he's one of the people I would most like to have. One of the conversation where you're your mature self now, talking about that younger self and being together. So I miss you.
I'll just speak. So I completely did not plan actually to be here. Rob and I were traveling, and I had put, ironically, after spending 6 years in college relations, I had the weekend wrong. Maria Smith texted me and said, "Nzinga and I are going to be there. You're going to be there." I was like, "Oh shit, it's next week." So we made it work. I'm so glad that we're back. I feel like if I don't say something about Michael Billington, nobody will. I'll try not to brag. So Michael, back to Fairweather, Michael was right across the hall from me. And when I met Michael, he was kind of a cipher. He was this tall, El Greco-looking, attenuated, beautiful blonde guy who was also marvelously curious and deeply sensitive. And he and I became fast friends. We ended up staying in the Berkshire Quad. There was a whole tribe of us who loved it there. And Michael and I and Lisa Leonard and Meg Luce, etc., a number of folks became firm friends, and I saw a lot of you in that mix as well as Mia Douglas, who is sadly not here. My favorite memory of Michael, which really kind of, I think, captures how quirky and specific he was dating Chris Hewlett. And so Michael, even though he looked gay, was straight. And Michael and Chris Hewlett and I were drinking, and probably drinking a fair bit. It was my birthday. They were celebrating me. They were going to take us all out to a restaurant somewhere. We borrowed somebody's block-long 72 Buick Skylark. The thing was, basically, if you started spinning the wheel, eventually you started to see the whole thing. So around bottle number 2, Michael spills wine on his nice dress shirt. And we didn't exactly know what to do. We were heading out to dinner very shortly. So Chris said, and Michael always had a little bit of a drag persona, Chris said, "Well, why not just wear one of my party dresses?" So Michael ends up in this red chiffon dress in Williamstown, my birthday. We take the massive Skylark, and then we go out to dinner together. And Michael was entirely unashamed. So he ended up, I went to Hampshire for a semester, Michael went to Hampshire and stayed, studied philosophy, and ended up doing really interesting work around spirituality, yoga, etc. Built a marvelous community in Colorado. And sadly, he had a hernia operation, and if you've heard about those screens that turn out to be toxic, Michael spent many years struggling after that operation, dealing with pain, chronic pain, and eventually he passed away. But Michael will not be remembered much at Williams, but I think many of us whose lives he touched will hold him in a special place.
Thank you very much. Who's next? Yes. Manuel.
Yeah. It's been 10 years since Dominic passed away. I had the blessing to be his roommate for 4 years here. What a tour de force human being. Through him I met Andrea Raphael. Through him I met all of us who lived together senior year, who are 5 of us are here. Dominic challenged me to be something I never could be. I came from Latin American country. I think I was the only one from Latin America in this whole class, which is very different from today's classes. But I came from a very kind of Roman Catholic upbringing. Meeting Dominic challenged every aspect of who I was at that time. I remember he invited me to Thanksgiving in New Jersey. And I remember him came from a typical Italian-American family, very close to his parents. He got home and he gave his father this big hug. And I never had a great relationship with my father, but I said, this is something I want to have with my kids. And because of Dominic, I took my kids to school every day, gave them a hug every day, and told them how much I love them. And to this day, when they come back, they give me a hug. And he was just an exceptional human being. And I will never forget him.
Daryl.
Hi, Daryl Schaefer. I just wanted to talk about Jen Koski. She was one of my dearest friends. I've never met a person in my life who exuded so much love as Jen. She just gave love every moment. And I appreciate so much that Jerry talked about lightning in a bottle in her words. Because as I was walking out, I was thinking, if I could bottle up Jen Koski in a bottle, it would be better than any drug that exists. It could make people happy, feel like it could cure diseases. And she just had such a special gift and such a love. And I just wanted to remember that. And I'm so sad she's not here to give us all hugs and to bring us all together. But what a loving person. What a great class we have. I miss her.
I'm going to say a few words about Sarah Murphy. I hope some others do too. Sarah was elegant, refined, sharp as a tack, and a really great sense of humor. And I'm going to illustrate this with a couple of stories on the same trip. So I don't know how I got on this spring break trip, but we drove to Florida, and the first stop was Brockton, Massachusetts. I think where we picked up the rental car. And Sarah took us all out for the evening at a Brockton bar, and she met up with some of her high school friends. And as soon as she had a couple of drinks, the lack of accent that she had in Williams melted away. It was wicked this and wicked that, and just a wonderful experience to behold. And then we made it to Florida, and I can't remember who all was on that trip. I could probably make some guesses. But I can remember it was one of those low-budget trips. We had to drive to Florida, and we also had to survive on the little bit of money that we brought along with us. And so we would go to these happy hours. And the happy hours are great because if you bought a drink, there were lots of hors d'oeuvres. And I didn't know much about the technique. I hadn't seen it myself. But Sarah always brought her purse along. and so at the end of these, I'm looking, Smurf, your purse looks so much bigger than what you got here. I said, yeah, that's dinner. So I really miss her. And she came, I went to visit her in London one time. And she came to visit me in California, brought her boyfriend. Just a good, loyal friend. Who's up? Who's up? All right, well, if you have stories and you can tell them tonight around the party, that's great. We're gonna switch gears for a second. I was in Chapin for the meeting today, and I thought I had a flashback, and it wasn't a convocation. And the reason is the first convocation I went to was when Mike Curtin won his bicentennial medal. Convocation was not a high priority for me. But the first time, well, probably the last time I was at Chapin was at a Warren Zevon concert. And I will bet that Warren